Today, we are going to be looking at basically introduction to particles, which can be extremely complicated, like materials and shaders, or quite simple, depending on if you're making them from scratch or just kind of working with a prefab. So, the easiest way to do it and to get an introduction into particles is to work with prefabs, what already exists, so to speak. And we're going to be looking at two different examples of this because one of them does not work correctly out of the box, and I can show you how to fix it in case you run into this error, and one of them does. So let's start with the one that works right out of the box. I think that makes the most sense. So you're going to want to grab these, and I'll leave a link in the asset store, which you can get to from your project by just going to Window and Asset Store. But basically what we're going to be looking at is our personal rain system, Rainmaker, and we're going to be looking at a older, more generic particle pack that has like explosions and fire and smoke and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and look at the Rainmaker, and once you download these, you can just go into your package manager, let it load, and then you can basically just hit download and import. So let's go ahead and import the Rainmaker, and as you can see here, we're just going to import it. Okay, looks like it imported. So now we are going to go to our Rainmaker folder that it made, go into the prefab, and we just want this rain prefab. There's also a 2D version, but we are in a 3D game, so we don't actually want the 2D version, but the 3D version. Alright, so you can leave this camera as blank because it'll find the main camera during a run, but pretty much you can play with the settings from here, and I would highly suggest doing that if you want to modify it. So you'd probably go into the drop down and work on the rain particle system. So let's take a look at how this works, which is putting the prefab into your project. Alright, so we are in, and we have rain. Not only do we have rain, but we also have a collision that does the splash effect, and we have this mist fog part. So this is a pretty good rain, and let me go ahead and close out of this, and sound too, and wind, so there's variation. It's actually a pretty good prefab to start with. But what we can do with this is basically change the mist and the rain intensity just out of the box by adjusting some of these sliders, which is, if you're new to particles, you can actually do a lot with their pre-built settings. So we turned it down from 1 to a 0.1, which should greatly adjust the intensity of the rain, and boom, we can see that made a huge difference. We don't see as much of the mist, the sound is different, and the overall spread of the rain is higher. So what we could do is have a slider on a UI menu that actively changes this system for players locally or globally. It's really up to you. You could change the mist, you could, remove the sound and all that good stuff. But let's say you wanted to actually adjust the spread of it. What we do is go into the rainfall particle system, and then you can see here we have different settings. So our max particles is basically how many actual particle objects exist inside our world at any given time. We have the shape, which will give us quite a bit of options here. And I believe we have, collision, so if you want it to collide with things, and a bunch of other good options, including even emission and things like that. So it does get quite complicated, which is why it's easier to work from a prefab and kind of learn what everything does with a working asset than try to build it from scratch yourself at the beginning. So we have our rain system here, which works pretty well, and you can play around with the colors and all that good stuff. But what about if we wanted something that isn't rain as a particle, like maybe like this, we actually hit play here, I'll show you there's a particle system on this cube that's like a steam or mist fog thing. You can check it out real quick. So you can see here there is a kind of a particle system attached to this. Obviously that is not part of this rain system. So let's take a look at our other example I said we would today, which is under my package manager, and it's just called a particle pack, and this was released from Unity itself in 2021. Now, what do we hit here? Let's hit skip, and if it has issues, we will deal with that when it comes. So we imported it. Now I need to locate our Unity Technologies folder, go into that, go into our effect examples, and you can see it comes with quite a few options here. We can zoom in here a little bit. And let's say we want to mess with a fire and explosion one, and maybe we want, which would be a good one here? Let's say big explosion. Now, what we're having here doesn't look like it works, right? Well, we need to fix this. Let's just go over how to actually do that. So we need to find the shader that it's using, which would be big explosion. So let's go into our materials and find big explosion. One way to do that is to find the fire explosion, go to the shader, and we're just going to change it to a standard shader. And we're going to do this with basically all of these glitched out materials. Let's see here, what else is it missing? We have the embers, shockwave. Where's that at? Just grab all of the ones that are messed up, and we are going to change these all to standard. Okay, so we got rid of all the purple stuff. So let's go ahead and hit play and see what happens. And we can see now it is working as it was supposed to. So basically the shaders or materials were just a little messed up, and we can fix that by just changing what they were from custom shaders to standard shaders. And we can probably see the same thing with these. We can see they are messed up. So let's go to maybe the smoke and steam and just do it one more time. Looks like these are actually working. Nope, still a little messed up. So let's say we want steam, which I believe is what we used over here. And let's go to materials and hold control to select all of these. We can see here that they have an internal shader error. So what we need to do is just go to standard for these. And voila! It is now working. So this will give you, again, if you want to mess with these, we can, kind of adjust it and see how it works. So if we change the max particles, right now it's at 100,000, which is huge. Let's say we change that down, you can see kind of how it works a little better. And get an idea of basically how these things work. The more particles, the higher the cost on resources, so try to keep your particles the max particles as low as possible, as if you have 1,000,000 particles you have to keep track of, it's going to cost more resources. But this is a basic introduction to particles, as it is a very large section of game creation and development, whether you're working in Unity or Unreal. It is very deep and complicated, or simple, depending on what you're trying to do. I highly recommend working in these prefabs to get an idea of how it works and kind of adjusting them to suit your needs and what you're trying to do, if at all possible. Anyways, that brings us to the end of this tutorial video. Hopefully I have earned your like, comment, or subscription today for helping you get these working in your VRChat world. And yeah, hopefully you were able to follow along pretty easily. And that's it. Hopefully this gave you a solid start. Whether you're building your first VRChat world or just looking to add more polish to the one you've already got, these little systems can go a long way toward making your world feel interactive and alive. If you want to try this asset out before dropping it into your own project, I've got a public demo world set up. You can jump in, push buttons, test things out, and see exactly how it works in action. I always try to keep the demo world updated with the latest version, so it's a great place to explore and get ideas. And if this video helped you, or if you're using any of my tools in your world, consider supporting me on Patreon. It helps me carve out more time to make these assets, keep them updated, and put together more tutorials like this one. Even a small pledge goes a long way and means a lot. There's a link to both the demo world and the Patreon in the description below, so feel free to check them out. Thanks again for watching, and as always, see you in the next one.